Welcome to the show, DBS, Design, Build, and Stand Out. Like and subscribe. Let's get into the show. So for our next project, we picked up this 2020 Volkswagen SE. As you can see, it was in an accident. The front end was damaged quite a bit. In our bumper bracket here, we've got a pretty good breakage right here where the weld broke. So this will have to be replaced. And then we got some minor damage on our hood right here. As you can see, there's some dents in the hood, and over here, touch up the paint and a little bit of damage right here. Probably go ahead and replace this fender though, because as you can see, there's quite a bit of damage to this fender right here. It's all buckled up under here. It's probably just easier to go ahead and replace that fender and paint it out and match it up to the car. And then over on the other side over here, we've got a little bit of damage. Not too bad. We'll go ahead and reuse this door. But this scuff mark, put a little filler in there, get it painted, and then we got some marks over there. As you can see in the interior, it's really pretty nice with the SE model. Has the push button start, got the vinyl interior versus the kind of cloth material that the S model has, and then the sunroof. And then there's some other features electronically. And so some of the things that we're going to have to address that happened with the accident is here on the front. This is all busted and it's bent. It actually broke right here. So we'll have to replace this hood latch and mechanism. Obviously this is tweaked. You can see it actually kind of curves. It put an indent into the actual mechanism for the hood latch. Right here in the fan and cooling mechanism, this whole housing unit that holds that in have to be replaced. So obviously this is busted, and there's another piece that's busted right here, and you can see it's pretty flimsy. Now, as far as the overall car, it's in pretty good shape. And so our plan for the car is to do a comparison of the do-it-yourself Jetta SE versus the Jetta GLI. And so can we make this Jetta, can we make it better, faster, and lighter than the Jetta GLI? Well, let's find out. We're going to take a deep dive into the two car comparison, the Jetta Do-It-Yourself and the Jetta GLI. And we want to turn this segment over to Andrew.
The first thing you might be wondering is, why would you even compare a standard Jetta to a GLI when you could just go out and buy one? Well, for one thing, they both use the same MQB platform underneath. But let's consider the differences so we know just how big a task we've set. The engine is the biggest thing. It uses the 1.4 liter turbocharged engine as opposed to the rather ubiquitous 2 liter Volkswagen turbo. It's actually a fairly powerful engine, producing over 100 horsepower per liter. On the other hand, it's only 1.4 liters, so just over 140 horsepower is never going to make it a rocket ship. But we do have a few advantages. The standard Volkswagen Jetta weighs over 300 pounds less than the GLI, which means we don't necessarily have to match the 228 horsepower output of the 2 liter in order to get comparable performance. Other areas that we'll be considering are the suspension and handling. With the GLI, Volkswagen goes ahead and replaces the rear suspension, the torsion beam in the standard Jetta, with a fully independent setup. What that means is it allows both sides of the car to move more freely, whereas the torsion beam ties them together, which can cause some issues in mid-corner bumps and general smoothness of the ride. The other is at the opposite end of the car. The GLI gets Volkswagen's limited slip front differential, which is a mechanical system, unlike a lot of electronic systems you'll find in similar cars. And that makes sure that both sides of the car are free to put the power down independent of one another, so you don't get one wheel stuck just spinning, burning rubber, and not actually putting any power down. But one advantage if we do end up with a little bit less power is that earlier examples, such as the 5th generation car, only had about 200 horsepower and performed just fine without the limited slip differential. Final areas that we might be looking at for performance are going to be the braking system. The GLI has upgraded brakes at all 4 corners. And then there's just the overall appearance of the GLI, looking a little bit sharper and more refined as opposed to the standard SE that we'll be working with. One area that we don't have to worry about too much, even in comparison with the GLI S trim, is that our SE comes similarly equipped. There's a little bit of a difference between a standard Jetta S versus the GLI S. No one really knows why Volkswagen decided to do that, but the trim levels actually pair up with our SE versus an S. So the question, for the roughly $10,000 price difference, what could we actually accomplish to make our Jetta DIY better than a standard factory GLI? So with those things in mind, back to Dave.
If you like the content of the show, like and subscribe.